The Breakfast Club, bitches.
Who's Donkey of the Day today?
Yes, Donkey of the Day for Thursday, September 29th goes to a man named Asheef. Asheef is a registered sex offender from Chicago. He, along with other convicted sex offenders, were featured on a Vice documentary that was chronicling the story of convicted sex offenders who said they have had to serve additional time in prison, or what they call dead time, because of the restrictive housing laws that prohibit them from living in many areas of the country. I never heard of dead time, and this is why documentaries are important, because they are really good sources of information. Asheef served 6 years of dead time in prison on top of his initial sentence of 9 years behind bars after being convicted of forcing oral sex on a woman and penetrating her with his fingers when he was just 15 years old. Now, in Illinois, convicted sex offenders who are legally required to put their names on a registry, and they're often banned from obtaining housing in areas near schools, daycares, and playgrounds, which keeps them from living in highly populated areas that could offer places of employment. Now, I need you to follow me with this story because it's a thing, right? That's why they made the documentary. Advocates for prison reform claim that sex offenders are unjustly punished even after being locked up. But on the other side, supporters of the rules governing registry say that the measures are necessary to mitigate the risk posed by convicted sex offenders in the community. So one topic, two sides. In the documentary, the narrator says, in Illinois, if you can't find a house that meets the rules, you stay in prison. Asheef told Vice that he was sent back to prison because he couldn't find housing that would accept a parolee and a convicted felon. Asheef was released from prison with just a bus ticket, and he got to make it on his own with no ID and no family. He was also required to wear an ankle monitor to track his movements. He also told Vice that he has filled out some 50 job applications and walked into 20 places and asked if they were looking for workers, and he hasn't had no success. Okay, Asheef said he is open and willing to work anywhere, doing almost anything that can put some money in his pocket and allow him to pay his rent and be self-sufficient. One of the main reasons he needs to make money is that he needs to pay a $100 fee to even register as a sex offender, okay? Asheef clearly doesn't have the money, and he said that if he cannot afford the expenses that come with traveling to and from a special class that is required for sex offenders, then he is in danger of going back to prison simply because he can't afford the fees associated with his post-release requirements. Wow. Now, I know what you might be wondering. Well, why the hell is Asheef getting Donkey of the Day? I see some people saying Vice clearly has made a piece that makes some folks feel sympathetic to reintegrating sex offenders into society. That's part of it, but to me, this doc is more about the judicial system and how the judicial system does continue to punish people even after serving their incarceration. But I tell you this, if you did have sympathy for Asheef, if you found yourself on Asheef's side, if you found yourself on the side of the prison reform advocates that say sex offenders are unjustly punished, and you were frowning at the people who say the measures are necessary to mitigate the risk posed by convicted sex offenders, well, then you might rethink that stance. Why, Uncle Charlotte? What did he do? Well, let's go back to this one part of the Vice doc to find out.
We all out here in this world, and we all got to make it happen, and ain't nothing stopping me. So, like, I'm very hopeful and confident.
After this interview, Asheef sent a picture of his penis to our producer.
Thanks, Alice, and to your whole team for this report. I think it raises a lot of questions, clearly spotlights an injustice. But I wanted to ask you about what it was like to find out that Asheef had sent that picture to one of your producers.
I mean, I was shocked. I was angry. If this was something that happened from a stranger, you would just block the person and never talk to them again. But we're journalists and we were working with Asheef on this. So we reached out to him, we got comment. We reached out to his lawyers. He says he sent it by mistake, which I think it's up for the viewers to decide whether they believe that or not.
Was it hard to decide whether to use that information or not in the piece?
Yeah, we went back and forth a lot about it. Because on the one hand, you could argue that it's not relevant to the story of the injustice that Asheef faced at the hands of the state, all of the years of dead time that he served. That's really what our story was about. And his lawyers would argue that, the fact of the dick pic isn't relevant. But we wanted to basically give the full story to our viewers in a piece that's also about what it means to reintegrate successfully and unsuccessfully as someone who's on the sex offense registry this seemed like, an important fact to note about Asheef, who is a complex person, and this is part of his complexity.